To get more practice on processing two-dimensional arrays, we would like to have some practice exercises. In the first exercise, we have a manufacturer that makes 7 different types of chemical products which get processed through 5 different machines. We need to write a method named findProcessingTime that takes as parameter a two-dimensional array named time of size 7 by 5 that contains processing time in which each row represents a chemical product and each column represents a machine. So let us elaborate more on this part only and understand what this two-dimensional array is used for. It says that the two-dimensional array contains the processing time. So as an example, if you look at this table, the entries inside represents time. And this time is for a machine that it takes for processing a product. If the rows are for the products and the columns are for the machines, then each entry inside represents the processing time for that machine to process the product. For example, 5. 5 is the processing time for machine 2 to process a product 2. For example, 3. 3 is the processing time for machine 4 to process product 4. So now we understand how to use the two-dimensional array for the problem. Let us continue. It says the method should then display the chemical products that have a processing time less than the average for only the first machine. What does that mean? It means that you need to find the average of the processing time that all machines take to process all products and compare it with all processing times that the first machine takes to process all products. Any processing time for any product is less than the average, then we display the product number. In fact, we display the index of this product. So here in this example, column 0, in fact, of the array time represents the first machine. So this is column 0. And the values below the calculated average, because after finding the average, which was 3.48, the values below these averages can be found on product 2 because 1, product 4 because 2, product 5 because 3, and product 6 because 3, and all of these processing time less than 3.48. However, for product 1, it takes processing time 7, which is greater than the average. So it should not be printed by this method. And this is a sample input-output. The output first print the average processing time for the all machines, and then it prints the product numbers that their processing time less than the average for the first machine. So how the method should process the two-dimensional array? In fact, this can be done in 2 steps. In the first step, we need to compute the average processing time for the entire array, and this can be done by processing the array row by row using nested loops. And in the second step, we need to compare the average time with all the processing times that machine 0 takes to process the products. And this can be done by processing the column 0 only using single for loop separate from the nested loop. If any of the processing time for any product is less than the average, we simply print the index of this product. So let us go to JGrasp and implement the method. We are in JGrasp now. We have created a class and we defined a main method inside it. Also, we have declared a two-dimensional array of integer that represents time, and we initialize it with data according to the example given in the problem statement. So we need to define the method now that is called findProcessingTime that takes the two-dimensional array time as a parameter. So we will define it as a static because we are going to call it inside main method, and main method is a static. So it will be public static followed by the return value. Since this method is going to print the average processing time as well as the product number that its processing time for machine 0 is less than average, so there is no single element that this method should return. Therefore, the return value should be void. And the name of the method is findProcessingTime as suggested in the problem. And the input parameter will be a two-dimensional array, and also we are going to call it time, the same name as the name of the array inside the main method. So first we need to compute the average of the entire array. And as we mentioned that we are going to process the array to find the average row by row. So here we will say compute the average processing time. And we will write the nested loops for row by row. Integer row equals 0, row less than time dot length, row plus a plus, and the inner loop will be for loop, that is for column, and we pick here any row, and we are going to say time 0, which is row 0 dot length. It will give us the number of columns, and here we have column plus a plus. In each iteration, for average we need summation, so we are going to define an integer variable called sum, and inside the loop we are going to add all the processing times of the entire array into this sum. So we write sum equals sum plus time row and column. So this is a standard processing for a two-dimensional array to compute the average. So let us compute the average, and as you see that in the example given in the problem statement, that the average was found as double. So therefore we are going to define the average as double, and we are going to divide sum over the size of the array. And the size of the array is in fact can be found from time dot length, and this will give me the number of rows. And to find the number of columns, pick any row and then say time 0 dot length, and this will give you the number of columns. When you multiply number of rows by number of columns, it will give you the number of elements of the entire array. But this will not give you the answer in double, because sum is integer, time dot length is integer, and time 0 dot length is also integer. So we are dividing integer over integer. So let us do typecasting by converting the sum from integer into double. So now sum is converted into double and will be divided by an integer, which is the size of the entire array, and the answer will be in double. Next, we need to print the average. So we say system.out.println, and here we say average processing time colon, and here we need to display the average that we have already computed in the previous step. Now we need to find all processing times for machine 0 that are less than the average. So here we are going to say that find all processing times for machine 0 that is less than the average. And as we mentioned that we are going to do that by using single for loop. So we will say for, and since we are going to go over the column 0 only, so that means the loop will be processing the rows. So we say row 0, and row will be less than time dot length, and we will have row plus a plus. So here we are visiting every row of column 0. Now we need to compare the element that is at row and column 0. If it is less than average, then we have to display the index of that row. So we will say that system.out.println, and we print the row value. But we need to print a message before printing the rows. System.out.println, and this message is products less than average for the first machine, and we put colon and we close the statement for a println. Now the program is complete. As you see that we have only a single loop that will go over machine 0, which is column 0, and we will visit every row. So we are visiting row 0, row 1, row 2, so we are going only on that column, and we compare every processing time. If it is less than average, then simply we print the row number. Now let us call this method within our program, which is in main. So we will say find processing time, and we are going to give time as input parameter. Now we need to test the program. First we need to save it. It is already saved by the name find the processing time demo. We will compile it and make sure that it does not have any error. So we have an error here. Yes, we have put extra bracket. So we will remove this bracket, compile again. Now the program does not have any errors. Let's run the program and see the result. And as you can see that it says that the average processing time is 3.48, which is the same average that is written in the example. And also it says that the products less than average for the first machine 2, 4, 5, 6. So our method is computing what is required from the problem correctly.